Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Islam for Europeans. I'm your host, Robert. Please like and subscribe to the channel. So we made it. We are now at 2,000 plus subscribers. Alhamdulillah. A big thanks to all those who've supported us, throughout the years. Hopefully, this channel, Islam for Europeans, will continue to grow. So I'm going to talk about the cringe tweet of the week. And this is someone who I've never responded to before. So I'm just going to give my critical analysis of one of her most recent tweets. But I had some time to scroll through her history as well. So the woman's name is Bushra Sheikh. She's a Pakistani Muslim in Britain, a UK citizen. And her recent tweet, I guess, is a sight to behold. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Let's keep it real. 99% of abuse these racist haters spew is because it is from behind a screen. But anyway, economic power is shifting. India, it's time to be better friends. The only way against a breeding, color-hating Europe is together. To the haters, we're all Pakis. So, first and foremost, the first part of her tweet, I would actually agree with. Like most of these people who dislike Islam, who belong to like the anti-Islam right, who would identify with people like Tommy Robinson. These are the people who they just stand behind a screen and they just say give the common tropes against Islam. And these are end up being the main interlocutors for any type of Muslim influencer, whether that's someone who's more secular or Muslims who are very educated. So this creates, I guess, a selection bias of people who are on the anti-Islam right, right? Your Tommy Robinsons, your Douglas Murrays, and so forth. Now, there's another faction of the right that doesn't see the current conflict between Europe and the West as religious. Their opinions on Islam, there's a range. It's not as if it's someone like Tommy Robinson who just thinks Islam is completely evil and should be eliminated from the earth. But basically, what you're doing is by acting like this and by just believing that they're all one homogeneous group, the right. Basically, what you're doing is uniting them all, which is not what you want, because they're going to go to the same protests, they're going to vote for the same political parties. But in general, these people, like like who stand behind a screen, who spew hatred, they're not going to be representative of the whole British white British society. And I think she alluded to that, because she said that she's been to, mostly white towns in the UK, and people just, most people just want to get on with their lives. So I definitely appreciate the attempt to, better understand the varying attitudes and opinions on Islam and Muslims in the West, right? But by, for example, using the term white man as basically a synonym for Islam hater or oppressor, it doesn't really reflect the reality when you look at opinion polling. It doesn't reflect the reality even when you look at the enormous opposition to things like the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So current European populations, they didn't benefit from colonialism. That's one thing that we kind of forget, and it's kind of just gone by the wayside in terms of entering the discourse. You need an incredible amount of capital to be able to expand into other countries. Capital that would have been better spent on the present European population, or the historic European population, instead of these fantasies of going throughout the world and trying to expand the British Empire. Your common European peasantry didn't benefit from this, right? And the biggest point to that is that once Britain left the Indian subcontinent, that's when the economy started to grow and started to expand, right? So it's in economics, it's called imperial overreach. The more you try to expand as an empire, the more it just hollows out the ability to take care of your citizenry. So that's just in general. But even if it created this huge economic advantages for the European population during the colonial era. You're still talking about people who are several generations removed from the current population. In Islam, we don't believe that someone can bear the sins of their ancestors, basically, right? And when you look at the populations in Europe, there's always been opposition to either colonialism or neocolonialism. I mean, February 15th, 2003, at the time, is the day in which you saw the greatest protest, the largest protest in world history against the invasion of Iraq, right? And at the time, a slight majority of people supported the invasion of Iraq back then. But that has shifted now that people realize that Saddam Hussein never had weapons of mass destruction, right? But I find it interesting that Bushra is talking about allying with India. Now let's take a look at the score sheet, shall we? If we look at the way India has behaved vis-a-vis one of their greatest allies, or the greatest ally, Israel, their support between the two countries is unmatched. When you look at their economic trade together, when you look at their military collaboration together, when you look at their agricultural collaboration together, their cultural collaboration together, India has been since the early 90s officially, the greatest ally of Israel. So for Bushra to say, let's ally India and Pakistan together against the white man, when not only the government, Modi, was the mastermind or behind and really encouraged the mass killing of our Muslim brothers and sisters in Gujarat, but also the population itself. I mean, the current population in India, the support for Israel is 70%. Now that is far eclipses any Western population in any Western country, whether that's in Europe or any of the Western outpost countries. So, let's be serious about this. Allying with an oppressor in any way, shape, or form is a major sin. There's several ayat of the Quran in which this is stated. You can just point to, for example, Surah 21, ayah 17. Assisting an oppressor is a major sin in Islam. The ayah goes, he said, "My Lord, because you have bestowed a favor on me." This is Musa alayhi salam talking. He said, "My Lord, because you have bestowed a favor on me, I shall never be a supporter of the wrongdoers." Right? So, yeah, I mean, one could definitely say that, the Modi government, and more specifically the Indian population in general, you could definitely qualify them as an oppressor. Now, and on top of their support for Israel, which has been unwavering in the last 9 months. And, you just need to look at the raw footage to see the absolute carnage. They have also supported oppressing our Muslim brothers and sisters in India. There are mobs that have burned down mosques. There are mobs that are going after Muslims who are trying to sell halal beef. And what have Indians in the diaspora in Western countries done, to support our brothers and sisters in Palestine? When you look at the protests, there's just hundreds of white people who go to these protests, especially in the UK. Do you see any Indian flags there? Do you see, any supporters of Indian background? I'm sure that you do. but it's definitely a minority compared to how they really feel about the whole situation. Now, I do understand that, I think that in general, I think Muslims from a Desi background, um, because they're more involved with the Desi sphere, both Muslim and non-Muslim, that, they, should take a leading role in trying to give dawah to, Hindus, Sikhs. I mean, they're the ones who are on the front lines, I guess, when a Hindu converts to Islam, they know more about the culture. Hindi and Urdu are mutually intelligible languages. There are Sikhs who convert to Islam, and I think that it's important for them to take the reins in terms of helping out these converts. Because that's they're more involved with those communities. But imagine me, as a white Muslim, going to these groups or whatever that just absolutely hate Muslims and say, let's ally. I don't think that's not Islamically correct, and it's definitely a bad strategy, because either one of two things are going to happen: either they're going to reject you, or you're going to ally with them, but they're going to compromise your values. And when it really comes down to it, are you going to say something against them? You know, oppressing our Muslim brothers and sisters, right? So it really boggles the mind why you would support people who overwhelmingly have done nothing but oppress Muslims, and supporting other countries who oppress Muslims. Um, and yeah, I mean, the statistics, I could understand maybe if the Indian government was for these things, but the Indian people were not. And I've met Indian Hindus, a few of them, who don't hate Muslims. But when you have the overwhelming majority that support what's been going on in Gaza, when you have the overwhelming majority who are in their home country, want India to be a Hindu homeland, you can't ally with these people. You cannot ally with these people. It's a and it's a slippery slope, because let's face it. I mean, people who are in the West, white Westerners, they're going to see something like Bushra's tweet, and they're going to think that all Muslims, or most Muslims, think this way, right? And you don't see many Muslims calling her out on this, and maybe it's because they don't take her seriously, because she's not a sheikha, or maybe they think oh, I mean, like, haters are going to hate, there's no way, there's no point in trying to critique what she's saying. But the fact of the matter is, like, they're going to use tweets like these, the anti-Islam right, as like a banner, basically, to say, look, they don't really care about, look how much they're willing to compromise for their religion. They're willing to ally with people who support the killing of their Muslim brothers and sisters, just because they want to get back at the current white Western populations. And you don't see any like Islamic influencers call her out on that. So what do you expect? It's absolutely, actually, I think it's quite a miracle that so many people in the West are now supporting the Palestinian cause, whose opinions on Islam have shifted from negative to positive. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Glastonbury festival recently, and hundreds of Palestinian flags, like always, even before last October. Like, the support for Palestine among the white population is so high. It's just that you don't see that as a block. You don't see that as an organized effort, because they kind of ally in this particular way. I mean, if you're on the right, the only way you can ally is if you ally with establishment approved type protests. For example, like the Tommy Robinson Londonistan protests. The white Westerners who are pro-Muslim, who like don't support genocide, they can't organize. You can't, on a university campus, create an organization, Whites for Palestine. And the people who don't care, they're not going to stage any protests either. You're not going to see them on Twitter. They're not going to respond to your tweets. Like Bushra said, I'm speaking to Bushra specifically. People just kind of want to get on with their lives. So I don't think it's a good strategy to ally with these people. I don't. I think you're just adding fuel to the fire. It's just pure gasoline, and it's not making the situation any better. And I think a large part of that is because we're only looking at and you're only interacting with the anti-Islam right, who sees it as not just a racial problem but a religious problem. When in actuality, if you just take the whole race issue out of it and you just consider white Muslims just to be another group, that's going to grow organically from the ground up, that's a far more intelligent chess move. And then turning it into just basically, let's just have fewer white people and that will solve the problem. I mean, clearly that strategy has not worked. Because if you look at all the politicians that have been elected who are people of color, they're not any better. In fact, they're even worse. I mean, they, like, you can go up and down the list. Suella Braverman, Rishi Sunak, in the United States, Nikki Haley. What have they done for communities of color? Absolutely nothing. So, in conclusion, I don't think it's unfathomable that we would think that Muslims should be allying with India, given the track record they have over the past couple of decades in terms of oppressing those who say there is only one God and Muhammad is his messenger, peace be upon him. So that's my time for the day. Hopefully, I was as measured as possible. And like I said, I'm willing to talk to anybody. If Bushra wants to come on and we can have a civil discussion, I'm fine with that. And maybe I can convince her to support Islam for Europeans. I know that's I'm not hopeful, but you never know. But that's my time for the day. Please let me know what you think in the chat. Oh, and one more thing. She did mention China as well, and China has not been any better. I mean, look at the track record China has in oppressing the Uyghurs in China. They're, subhanAllah, one step away from the same type of massacre that we're seeing in the Holy Land. May Allah protect our brothers and sisters there. But it's not any better. So I mean, be careful what you wish for because you might actually get it. Like, in terms of Western governments, I agree with Bushra that they've been done nothing but horrible things to the Muslim world and Muslims in general. But their populations, they're not representative of what they think, and you can see that from the current polling. That the support for Islam in general is actually rising. But when you look at countries like India and China, if they were to take over, you would be begging, for white Westerners to take over the country again. Okay, so that's my time for the day. Please let me know what you think in the chat. I'm your host, Robert, Islam for Europeans. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.